Welcome to episode 132 of the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. I have no idea what I witnessed last night. I was up late typing out notes for this podcast and then I completely overslept this morning, so we missed our recording time, but we're back on track. We're recording now, still recording this Wednesday, or excuse me, I don't even know what day it is. I am so disoriented by what happened last night. Monday night, it's Tuesday. The Ravens will play any day of the week now, by the way. I mean, they've thrown my calendar completely out of whack.
Well, that's why you're so thrown off. We don't know, like every week it's a different day they're playing, so it's just so hard to keep track of, like my body clock and my emotions are all thrown off because I haven't seen the Ravens play on a Sunday in almost a month. I mean, I'm gonna miss Red Zone on this Sunday, Nolan. Like that's crazy.
It's been wild, to say the least. But fingers crossed that things will get back to normal from here on out. The next 3 weeks will be some normal Sunday games, all 1 o'clock. Maybe one of them's a 4 o'clock game. We'll see. But yeah, I mean this game was. I don't even know how to put this game into words. The fact that the Ravens came out on the winning end certainly helps. If they had lost this game, I have no idea how I would have framed the conversation. I mean, it's heartbreaking. I mean, it happened to the Browns, so you don't really care. Let's just talk about how crazy this game was in general. You have all the hype in the world. Browns still chasing the Steelers. Ravens chasing a wild card spot. Prime time, Monday Night Football. First Monday Night Football game Cleveland's hosted since, I believe, the Kick Six with Will Hill was the last time they hosted a Monday Night Football game. So nothing but heartbreak for Cleveland in terms of Monday Night Football. Lead changes left and right. Lamar leaves with the quote-unquote cramps. If this was a video podcast, you'd see me doing air quotes. McSorley comes in. He leaves with an injury. Lamar returns right in the nick of time. Ravens win. Justin Tucker, game-winning field goal. And not only was this easily the game of the year in the NFL, but this might be one of the greatest regular season games in Ravens history. Have you thought about that at all? Do you think it's hyperbole just because we're coming right out of it?
Well, I mean, I just woke up this morning and, I was turning on among the several, sports talk shows that I normally listen to on a regular basis. And I heard I heard this game be called the best game since the Chiefs and the Rams played 2 years ago on Monday Night Football, which was a 54-51 Rams win. Just absolutely crazy. And I think what this game really said to me was just thank goodness we have Justin Tucker. I mean, we talk about not watching the Ravens on a Sunday in a while. Well, watching Red Zone yesterday, I mean, it seems like there were just kicks being missed left and right, which is like a normal occurrence. Like I feel like almost every time I watch Red Zone, I'm just constantly reminded of how lucky the Ravens are to have Justin Tucker. And that was clearly the case last night when Cody Parkey of the Browns was missing field goals. He was missing extra points. And it's automatic too. I mean, forget the fact that it's a, mid 50-yard field goal, and forget the fact that he's kicking into the end with a dog pound. That's I've never been inside that stadium. For what I understand, it's open-ended and, there's wind everywhere. Forget that it's that long and you're kicking into that direction. But when Justin Tucker comes out on the field, you just get the sense that, all right, this guy, he's the best kicker in NFL history. And it doesn't matter how far the kick is. If it's 60 yards in Denver, if it's 55 yards in Cleveland, if it's 61 yards in Detroit where there's no wind, but still 61 yards is no slouch whatsoever. As soon as you see Justin Tucker trotted on that field, you feel confident that the Ravens are going to make whatever kick that situation is. And this one was a huge one that gave them the win last night. But yes, and it left 2 seconds on the clock. You would have liked the final seconds to tick off so that the 25-second play or whatever didn't happen there at the very end. But absolutely intense game. I was thinking to myself when the game started, both these teams are going to run the ball constantly and it's going to be over in 2.5 hours. Boy, was I wrong. It turned into a shootout. and one of the best games we've seen in years. It certainly delivered, and that doesn't always happen for primetime slotted NFL games, which we, by the way, have Steelers and Bengals, another just pivotal AFC North matchup next Monday night on Monday Night Football, and then the Browns, of course, they have to be featured in prime time again. So they're going to be playing the Giants, which was a flex game to Sunday night for whatever reason. So we're going to get to see those teams in prime time again while the Ravens play at 1:00. That was a lot of rambling, but wow, I'm sure you have a lot to say too about everything that happened. But yeah,
this is the rambling episode. I mean, there's just so much to get to, but you're 100% right about Justin Tucker. He never ceases to amaze me. He goes out there, and I right before they bring up the official distance on the TV, I'm thinking, what is this, a little over 50 yards? He can probably make this. And we'd heard about the wind conditions coming into the game, and it's that open end of the stadium, and he could probably still make it. You have that confidence. And then they bring up it's 55. And I still say, he's got it. He's got it. And I want to be celebrating already, but I tell myself, hey, this is for the game, when you just kind of stand up here, put your hands over your face, pretend like you're scared, and then when he makes it, you can celebrate. That's what I do every time Justin Tucker kicks a game winner. I have to pretend that I'm on the edge of my seat, even though I'm already celebrating inside my head. People joke about it, pay him like a quarterback and all this stuff. And the Ravens got an extension with him a couple years ago. It wasn't cheap in terms of kickers. It was pretty pricey, but time and time again, he proves that it's worth it. If you're a team that's going to play close games, which most teams typically do, even good teams, if you find yourself in close games, having a kicker like that, it's just a cheat card. It's like an automatic win. From 55.
Not to cut you off too, but like the Wolf Pack, just of like how tight knit of a group they are, and they have like ultimate confidence all in each other. You feel good about them all working together. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, and let's not forget that Morgan Cox was on the COVID list a couple weeks ago. He missed that Steelers game, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't recall any issues in that game, which we never pointed out because there was so much other stuff going on. But whoever filled in at long snapper there held it down decently well. But let's say, Morgan Cox or Sam Cook had been on the COVID list for this game, and you got that high-pressure situation, then this 55-yard kick, it's not just, you're right, it's not about Tucker by himself. It's the whole motion. And I love how anytime Tucker makes a game winner, they give him a press conference slot, the Ravens do, and he always, without fault, right from the jump, mentions Morgan Cox and Sam Cook because, he knows, and they all know that all three of them together are just a well-oiled machine, and it's the sum of its parts. It's not about any one individual, but if there was one individual to highlight, it would be the guy sweeping his leg and making all these kicks. But I'm just shocked. And I almost feel like having, even though it was a limited capacity, but having some fans in the building just made this game 10 times better. To have that live crowd reaction to the ups and downs, like, when Lamar left the game and then McSorley comes in and they show all the crowd shots, and the Browns fans, it looks like they're just, feasting hyenas, like they can smell, or a shark that could smell blood in the water, like they're going to come back and there's no doubt they're going to win this game. Then Lamar comes back, 4th and 5, rips their heart out, and they go to the crowd shots again, and they're just stunned. And then the game-winning kick, stunned. You got camera shots of these weird, goofy people wearing dog masks, and you can see their eyes are tearing up behind the mask, and you got just people crying. It was crazy. Like,
there were a couple fights. I don't know if you saw it. There was a shot at one point. I can't remember what half it was in, but it was a Ravens fan and a Browns fan going at it. Just, and they didn't really like say much about it. It was kind of awkward, but like those two fans were jawing back and forth.
I do remember that part. Yeah, it was weird. You both had masks on, but they're getting right up in each other's face.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly not what you want to see. But yeah, I mean, and I can understand being upset if you're a Cleveland fan in the moment. Like I said earlier, if the Ravens were on the losing end here, I don't know how I would feel, especially because it would essentially knock the Ravens out of the playoff race. I mean, they could still get in, but they would need a lot of help. So I can't tell you how I would feel. But at the same time, look, Cleveland's got 9 wins. They're 9-4. They're still fine. I mean, they needed this game because, Pittsburgh just lost on Sunday night, and if they win this game, they move within a game of the division. That's a huge deal, not only for them to be able to make the playoffs this year, but potentially win the division as well. That would be huge for them. There's no denying that. I cannot, invalidate that. But they're still in a great position to make the playoffs. So I don't know. I mean, to see the people crying in the stands, I take great joy from it, obviously, but I think it's a bit much.
There's always going to be, the Browns are always going to be the sob story for, the whatever fans that are fair weather or just, fans of the game that don't really have a team. But yeah, 100% right. And that game really did tell me too. I mean, the Browns have nothing to be ashamed of whatsoever. They played their hearts out. All we heard going into the game was how different this was going to be compared to week 1. And that certainly was the case. I was wrong. I mean, I was not feeling confident about the Ravens' chances going into this game. I still thought that, Lamar coming back from COVID, it was his second game. And you had a number of guys coming back playing in their first game since coming back off of the COVID list. And you're just coming in against this Browns team that, hasn't, beaten too many impressive opponents, but you beat who's in front of you. And they were coming in at 9-3, which was 2 games, 2 more games than the Ravens had won. And it's on the road too. So you're not feeling great about it. I'm glad that fans were there, and it's kind of bittersweet because the Ravens have only had fans at 1 game this year, and it really wasn't that much. I mean, I think it was only like 4,000 or 5,000. I think some of these stadiums are allowing like more than 10,000 or well more than 10,000. So it's kind of, it stinks from that point because you want the Ravens to be able to feed off their own crowd. But I do think that anytime there's anybody in the stands, regardless if they're against you or for you, it's better than just playing in front of complete silence, which is what the Ravens have had at all but one of their home games so far this season. But yeah, the Browns have nothing to be ashamed of. The Ravens, it's still, I mean, if the Steelers keep slipping here, I mean, their schedule is easy, so I don't foresee that, but it's not at all over for the Cleveland Browns. Are they going to have to basically win out and also beat the Steelers week 17? Absolutely. But not all is lost for them, whereas the Ravens were simply the more desperate team. And I'm not to circle all the way back to Tucker again, but it's not just the fact that, what he does on the field from what he's so valuable, but, I've had a few coworkers of mine and a few friends that have been lucky enough to run into, to have an interaction with Tucker, whether that's been at like an autograph signing. One of my buddies works at the Hunt Valley liquor store where Tucker goes in and buys his fancy wine, very expensive wine that I would actually like to imagine attributes to a little bit of his success because he's probably drinking all of the right stuff with that contract he has. But anybody that I know that's ever been lucky enough to meet Tucker or have an interaction with him says that, he's such a stand-up guy.
Yeah, and like one other thing on the kick, I thought I didn't know what direction you were gonna go there with Tucker. You said it's not just, his play on the field. I thought you were going to go to the way he celebrates. I would love for him, on the road. This would never happen. It would just be hilarious, to boot a 55-yard game winner and then be given like the stadium mic and just start singing opera at midfield while all the opposing fans leave sing Ave Maria or something while they're all crying and leaving. But that's the thing about this kick is, I mean, Lamar was the most excited. He comes running off the sideline, picks Tucker up, just completely mobs him by himself. And Tucker wasn't doing his typical, dancing and celebrating. It was like all business with him. You could see the look in his eyes after the kick. Like,
He's like, get the hell away from me, Lamar. You just had COVID 2 weeks ago.
maybe that's the case. But man, what a moment, what a kick. And not just that, I feel like you could see that from a lot of the players during the comeback. The Hollywood, after catching the big touchdown, I mean, he celebrated a little bit, but you could see when he went to the sideline, like he wasn't showboating, and it was probably because he had some ugly drops earlier, and he got this one, the one that counted most. But I don't know, I kind of like that look. They come off the sideline. It's nice to see him celebrating and having fun, but like they just had that killer instinct look. Like after that touchdown to Hollywood's like, oh yeah, we're gonna win this game. We're going to do whatever it takes to win this game. So let's dial it all the way back to kind of the beginning of this madness and pick apart where things went wrong. What were your thoughts at the time? Ravens have a 14-point lead towards the end of the third quarter. Tyus Bowser single-handedly snatches a Baker Mayfield pass out of the air, snatches it almost with one hand and then corrals it. Takes it almost all the way back for a touchdown. I thought he had a touchdown. I thought his knee was on top of the player's hand, Browns player, but they didn't give it to him. Doesn't matter. First play from the goal line, handoff to J.K. Dobbins, walks in for the touchdown. Justin Tucker's extra point blocked, by the way. Ravens could have went up 15. They only go up 14. And still, nonetheless, 14-point lead on the road here in this game. That is huge. It's towards the end of the third quarter. Ravens fans are celebrating. Ravens fans are feeling good. Now, the defense had not played particularly well, but you are just coming off of that Tyus Bowser interception. Huge momentum swing. And now, all of a sudden, the Browns, they get the ball back. They're moving a little bit. And we hear from the sideline reporter, Lisa Salters, oh, yeah, Lamar's not on the sideline. He's in the locker room. We don't know why. Well, now, hold on a second. What's going on here? What are you doing to me? And get longer into the drive, and it was a pretty lengthy drive, maybe like a 6-7 minute drive. Get all the way down and score. Oh, Lamar Jackson's still in the locker room being treated for cramps. What? Cramps? What is this? Hopefully he'll come back out for the next drive. Well, he doesn't. Trace McSorley comes out for the next drive. I see him trot onto the field, and no offense to him because, look, he had his magic moment against the Steelers with the touchdown pass to Hollywood. They didn't win that game, but still, it was a great moment. And, you like Trace's attitude and all that. But for lack of a better word, he's essentially become a meme, in the NFL community because of that godforsaken TikTok song. And it's no fault to him, but it's just what it is. Whenever anyone talks about him, it's in a joking manner. And he comes out.
This is why I don't have TikTok. This is why I don't have that.
I mean, even if I don't have it either, but you can't avoid this thing. I mean, the whole Trace McSorley, song, like it's everywhere. So he comes out, and I just want to say this about Trace McSorley because I was someone who was very critical of why he's still on the team. Why are the Ravens continuing to carry him? I know they spent a draft pick on him when they probably shouldn't have in hindsight. I still don't think – I mean, that was one of the last picks in the draft. You could have just gotten him as an undrafted rookie free agent. Whereas you spent even a 7th-round pick on him, now you feel like you're indebted to him and you have to carry him around, and we've had RG3 this entire time. So you're never he never had the opportunity to be a true backup. And I just don't know. And he never struck me as an NFL-type quarterback, even a backup. But I got to give him all the credit in the world because he has now twice come into situations where he didn't expect to be in the game, comes into huge games against division rivals on the road, and this one with a crowd in the stands that was making quite a bit of noise. And he just had he didn't flinch at all. and they put the ball in his hands. They came out throwing. I think they handed it off once. They had him throw a couple passes. He should have converted the first down. Marquise dropped just the easiest pass, goes right through his arms. It led him perfectly. McSorley did. It would have been a first down later on when he
by the way. I'm done with Hollywood after that. I mean, I know he came back and had the touchdown, but it's tough because I know he doesn't have a lot of help, but I know Des Bryant is out. But come on, man, you have got to make that catch. I mean, the commentators were saying it right there. He's not using his hands. He's not being aggressive. He lets the ball come to him. He's just got to use his arms more, and he's not physical. That's the biggest problem with him right now.
Yeah, I'll get to him. We'll get to him in a second. But one last thing on McSorley, and I want to hear your thoughts, because I don't know. I can't say for sure what his future in this league is going to be, backup, or if he'll ever get the chance to just, cut him loose and see what he can truly do. I just don't. I'm still skeptical in that regard, but he's got poise. He's got balls. I'll say that. I mean, on 3rd and 2, where he just goes down with that injury, and man, that's so hard to watch. I mean, thank God Lamar was ready to come back in. It just, for him, he was leading the drive there, and he threw a great pass to Willie Snead. Great catch by Snead. He's keeping the drive alive. They start running more, but you got 3rd and 2 here, and they put the ball in his hands again. I think that says it all. It's 3rd and 2. You could have handed it off, and I know it might have been like a read option, but I think when they run it with him and RG3, it's like a pseudo read option. They make it look like it, but they probably know where they're going pre-snap. And who knows what he would have been able to do if his leg didn't buckle there. I mean, there was no gaping hole right in front of him, but he had a little space to maybe make a cut and do something, and it's just unfortunate that he collapsed there.
Well, the Browns defense is ready for that play, so I kind of almost wish they had done something different, because, I mean, it does say a lot that they, trusted McSorley, and he does still fit their scheme. Like, he is that, type of player. But the Browns defense is ready for it. So I didn't like the play call because it didn't work. But I don't know if you saw, because of you stumbling out of bed and rolling in front of your microphone and hitting record. But Jamison Hensley said, I think it was probably about a half hour ago, probably not long before we started recording, that it's a knee sprain for McSorley, so it's not season ending. But with that now, and with RG3, I think the Ravens are going to have to elevate that guy Huntley, I think his name is, from the practice squad, or the 4th quarterback that they had. I don't think they're going to have to sign anybody, but that's something that I would be on the lookout for as well. But and that was the other thing. I mean, McSorley did go down, but Lamar changed his cleats too. I mean, it wasn't just the cramps. It was also the fact that he was changing his cleats that the announcers are making note of too. It wasn't. I typically prefer grass fields over turf from an injury standpoint, but this, as the game went on and it kept getting colder, this field just did not hold up well, which happens sometimes in Cleveland. But yeah, the whole Lamar thing, that was certainly dramatic as well. And the internet certainly had fun with that. And I was, very concerned too, because they're saying cramps, and this is, Lamar's 2nd game coming back from COVID, as you said. I mean, my mind kind of went to the worst when I was when I first heard the word cramps, and then you see Lamar come out, and it's like, okay, good, like Sam Cook or Willie Snead's not going to have to come in and play quarterback now. The day is saved, and then on 4th down, you throw us a touchdown pass, and everything is well and dandy after that. But yeah, nuts. And I guess the moral of the story is, good to see Lamar, come out after such a delay there, because, I mean, my mind kind of went to the worst. And then when I saw all the poop jokes, then I was having fun with that too. And Lamar said something on Twitter about it as well. And then he said in his post-game press conference too that he didn't boo Paul Pierce, which is hilarious. But yeah, just another element added to the game that just created all sorts of drama.
So I don't think we're getting the full story with the cramps. And, I knew in the moment when they first announced cramps, it was the first drive that he was out. And he missed essentially almost 2 full drives. He came in for the very last play of the second one. And they kept saying cramps, and he's being treated for cramps. And I'm thinking, This has been like 10 minutes of game clock, which is probably like 15 minutes or more of real time, maybe even more than that. I mean, it has been a long, long time that he's back there. And when it comes to cramps, worst case scenario, you have to get an IV, which, according to him, is what happened. And then you can see he had a bandage on his non-dominant arm, which would be an indication that he did get an IV. But that's like worst case scenario for a cramp. You get an IV, you come back out. But he was still back there. And I'm thinking that it has to be more than cramps. There has to be something they're not telling us, or it has to be worse than cramps maybe. I don't know if that was the case because he came back, but I don't know. I mean, he ran to the locker room pretty well, and then everyone's making the joke that, you see him running on that camera in the tunnel back into the locker room. Said, "Oh, I know that run. I've been there. I know what that run's all about." He's going to the bathroom. But, and then he comes back. He comes jogging back out. He's fine. He throws the touchdown right away, gets on the field. You're thinking, all right, well, how's he going to hold up? He could have ran for the first down there. He throws a touchdown. That's a whole nother story, especially with it being Hollywood on the receiving end. He could have said, no, I'm going to make sure I get this first down myself. It's fourth down. We got to get this. Still throws it. But Hollywood scores the touchdown, and Lamar just goes and sprints down the field to celebrate with him like he's got no issue at all. So, and then after the game, runs on the field, he's jumping up and down, screaming, yelling, picking up Tucker. It's like, oh, do you really have cramps? Are you still nursing this injury or what? Like, he looked like he was moving around okay, but
but not to go back to the poop jokes, but if it wasn't a cramp and it was he had to go number 2 really bad, and it was a situation where he literally had to sprint to the locker room because I've been there before. Thank goodness the Ravens were not in their all whites last night. Thank goodness they decided to wear a darker shade of pants.
Well, that's why Paul Pierce had to take the wheelchair, because he had to be sitting down. He didn't want people. They were wearing their all whites. The Celtics were. He didn't want anyone to see. I think that's why he took the wheelchair off the court.
Well, that's the thing. Baseball, it's different because all the pants they wear are light. But if you're a Raven and that's going to happen to you, I think the black pants would be the best one because, the purple are still dark, but, you can still, if something were to happen, you could probably still tell, but it wouldn't be nearly as bad as the white pants. I will say that.
All right, one last poop joke just to get it out of the system. Is this the closest the Browns will get to the Super Bowl this year?
That's a good one. It might be. I guess
Lamar took the Browns to the Super Bowl.
Good one by you there.
Thanks. All right, Marquise Brown, because they made the play of the game, but the drops were as ugly as can be. I think it's mental with him, although he does catch the wide open one for the touchdown, so I don't know. I think it's mental. Something is just off. You don't drop. It's been a consistent thing with him. It's not just this one game. He's had ugly drops, non-contested catches that he drops all season, really. So I don't know what else it could be besides just a mental thing, lapse in your fundamentals. I really don't know, but it's concerning nonetheless. There's no doubt this year has been a disappointment for him as a whole, but it almost is more frustrating that these drops come in between, the touchdown this week in crunch time on a fourth down play, and last week with the amazing toe drag in the back corner of the end zone. He still does that, but then sandwiched between those great plays is just these wide open drops. It almost makes it more frustrating that he puts together like these amazing, spectacular plays and then goes right back to the drops.
Yeah, and it makes it all the more frustrating too. It makes the whole Twitter incident from about a month ago not look as great when you say something like that, and then when you're attempted to the ball is coming your way and you don't come up with it. It doesn't make like a little social media, I don't know what you call like an outburst look that great. I do think some of this is mental because when this is a repeated thing over and over again, I mean, you can only look so much at the mechanics. I certainly don't think that, Hollywood's the way in which he receives the ball and his lack of physicality is helping him. He just doesn't, for all the weight and the muscle that he put on this offseason, I just haven't seen him be physical and use his body and use it like as a weapon. I mean, and it's not his fault necessarily. He just doesn't have all the size in the world, but you would still like him to be more physical and have a little more of a stronger presence out there as a receiver. He still, he can block. He's not like a dominant blocker by any means, but he plays his role well there when they do, have those running plays that are design runs. But yeah, definitely the mental yips. It's definitely a thing with him right now. I do agree that it's a part of it. I mean, the last night was a perfect example because it almost looked like one of those plays where he was getting ready he could see what was happening after the catch before he actually made it. And luckily on the play that mattered, the fourth down, that if the Ravens probably don't get that there, they probably lose the game. Luckily he found a way to make that catch there and took it in for a score, and didn't say much about it, just kind of went off to the sideline, wasn't celebrating like you were saying, which was a good look. After the rough start, he had 6 targets with only 2 receptions and for 50 yards of the score. But yeah, and more frustrating too about Dez Bryant still being out. We don't know what the full story is. He was still placed on the COVID list after testing negative, according to his Twitter. But I mean, now with only 3 games left, I mean, you really have to wonder how much Dez is even going to be able to get going, because it just seemed like he was just getting back into that shape, and then he misses 2 games. So I'm not sure how much of an impact he's going to have.
Yeah, I mean, and let's real quick, Mark Andrews and Willie Snead come back for this game off the COVID list, which was huge for this team. I mean, look at that last drive alone was them. It was all them. And then Willie Snead, the previous drive, the huge 3rd down catch. Andrews earlier in the game, huge conversion on a scramble broken play from Lamar. They made just a huge difference in this game, having them back. So I think that was obviously great. I think we all would have or could have seen that coming, that Andrews being Lamar's favorite target, having him back would make a big difference. But 8 catches between the two of them for 107 total yards. Those are the sure hands that Lamar needs right now. So, even when there's not a big emphasis on the passing game like we saw in this one, where, I mean, Lamar almost went into the half with a negative passing yard stat. They made the play right towards the end to, get into the green, so to speak. But there was not a big emphasis on the passing until the very end of the game for the Ravens. But right there again, I mean, that's all the evidence you need. Those 2 guys, Andrews and Willie Snead, stepped up in the biggest moment. So thank God they came back. Hopefully Dez can be back for this Jaguars game. I think he would be eligible by that point. And it sounds like, according to him, that his positive test from last Tuesday was a false positive, because he's had nothing but negatives since then. So, he's missing out on practice time, but, he's a veteran. So,
well, then why was he on the COVID list then if he's tested all negatives? Is that
it sounds positive? Like they put him on right after the positive test. That's my guess. And then he had the negatives the following couple days. So maybe they kind of jumped the gun with that. But I guess that's protocol. If he tested positive on game day, I feel like they also panicked because they let him into the stadium in the first place. So maybe it was a little bit of a panic.
But wasn't he not put on the COVID list until like midway through last week? Like I would have just thought that he would have.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't remember the exact timeline, but it would make sense if my guess is they did it super reactionary, but I don't know. I really don't know. Or maybe there's something, maybe it wasn't a Ravens decision. I mean, maybe this is an NFL protocol.
Right.
We really don't know what the hell's going on with this. I mean, we covered that at length last week, just how this is being made up as we go. So, maybe it was an NFL decision, an NFL protocol. that forced him to do it, but he should be back for Jacksonville, I would guess.
Well, Dez isn't the only veteran over the age of 30 that I'm suspecting is questionable at this point. To play against the Jags on Sunday, he might have a better chance to play than a guy like Mark Ingram, who was out there for just one offensive snap, the first snap of the game. Kind of looked like a flea flicker there, and then they had Dobbins and Gus Bus and Justice Hill in there the rest of the game, and Dobbins. Speaking of which, I mean, that 2-point conversion, I mean, that was a really, really hard hit. I was like, man, is he going to be okay? It looks like really hard collision there after that at least happened. I also didn't know that it really seemed like, well, going back to the running backs too. I mean, Gus Edwards just being a machine with 2 touchdowns on 49 yards on his 7 carries. And that's 7 yards per carry there. Dobbins had 4.1 with his 53 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, do you buy, like, are we seeing an actual shift now with Ingram, or do you suspect that the ankle is still a problem for him? Because I do think that it's really strange that immediately after the first play, he was taken out and not seen again. And if he's not going to have a role, then why would he be, active for game day?
Well, I don't have a problem with him being active because you never know with injury. I'd rather have him than Justice Hill. Even though Justice has to be active because he's a tremendous special teams player. So if they think they have the space, then sure, make him active. I don't have an issue with that. But I will say it is funny because it was Friday that Greg Roman had his press conference and made waves by accusing the fans who were or saying the fans were angry about, the distribution of carries, were coming at it from a fantasy football perspective, which is just the most asinine thing to say. No, we're telling you we want to see J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, not just J.K. Dobbins. We want those 2 guys to carry the ball because they're clearly the better running backs. You don't need you don't need to watch film to see that. You just see it in game time. The same runs that you give Mark Ingram versus Dobbins and Edwards, it's 1 to 2 yards versus, 3-4 yards, 5 yards, easily. And then some. I mean, there's a burst with those guys that there isn't with Mark Ingram. So I think it is funny that, and it's probably going to get a little bit lost in all the commotion of this game, but right after those comments from Greg Roman on Friday, where he said, Mark Ingram does all the dirty work for us or something. Well, if dirty work is being out there for a botched flea flicker and then nothing else, then I'm okay with that being the dirty work, I guess, is what I'm saying. So I'm happy to see them, mix it up a little bit. But then, when Lamar is going to carry it 9 times for 124 yards, it's like, well, who needs running backs? But
and 2 other, while I was on the subject of snap counts with Ingram there, 2 other snap count observations, because I'm weird and look into this stuff. On offense, DJ Fluker played most of the game. I think Jeff Zreback or somebody mentioned that Tyree Phillips was struggling. And as the game went on, they just kind of left Fluker in there. And I did notice him a lot in there more and more as the game progressed. And I guess, along the offensive line too, Ben Powers has sort of taken the reins at right guard, which was originally Phillips' position at the beginning of the season. But with injuries and other, forcing Phillips out, Powers has gotten to go in there at right guard and play well. And I really hope Powers sticks. I mean, there's a spot there to be had for him. The Ravens drafted him, and that was, of course, the Mo Gaba pick. So I really hope that Powers can stick and be the solution there, be the long term, at least for the next few years, answer at right guard while the Ravens have him under his rookie contract. And then on defense, man, we saw a lot of Devontae Harris, and it was no bueno. And that was really because Jimmy Smith only played 19 defensive snaps, which was only 23%. I thought he was in there a lot less than 19, though. I mean, I really guess we missed Jimmy Smith in the second half. I guess he played a lot in the first half, but I saw it's a shoulder injury for Jimmy now, and he's had like a groin, a shoulder, just like a bunch of injuries this week. Like, I feel like Jimmy is right now like that the fish with the glass bones and paper skin from SpongeBob. Like that is Jimmy Smith right now, just walking around in just all casts and bandage tape right now because every single part of his body is injured. He'll probably get a concussion next week.
Yeah, I mean, he earlier this year, I mean, he was a back injury that he had all kinds of stuff earlier this year that he played.
He's had everything, and Achilles. Yeah. He's had it all.
Yeah. So I mean, credit to him because again, when he's out there, you want him out there. He's good. He's that good. He contributes, and I don't know. He can't stay out there, and it's just so unfortunate. But this is a good transition to the defense because we've had.
Well, I mean, Jimmy Smith getting banged up. Marcus Peters was dinged up too at one point, and I forget who was talking after it might have been Harbaugh or Lamar. Somebody said that like at one point, like late in the game, Marcus, after he had gotten hurt, like trotted back out there and was still limping. And it must have been Harbaugh because he was like, "Oh, Marcus is back out there," and the trainer was like, "Marcus went back out there." So apparently he went back out onto the field without even letting the doctors know, which I'm not surprised because Marcus Peters, that's just what he does. But I have no problem with that. I mean, if he's okay to play, you credit him for playing through it.
Right. I mean, I was going to get into the defense here. I mean, as a whole, they just got torched. 493 total yards of offense for the Browns, 42 points to show for it. Easily the worst defensive effort of the year for the Ravens. One of the worst in years, probably. I mean, they just got decimated. Couldn't stop the run, couldn't stop the pass. Besides Bowser making that one clutch play, which really, I mean, if he didn't make that, God knows where this game would have went. The Browns might have run away with it, but so he had that. And then early on, I mean, that's what was so frustrating. The first half of this game feels like a completely different game that we haven't even talked about and tapped into in terms of conversation because, watching the first half, I thought all we were going to talk about was all these just the refs were making all these terrible calls towards both teams, but it felt like it was weighted more towards the Ravens. And you had 3 forced fumbles by the Ravens defense, and that none of them took a Ravens bounce. I thought that was going to be the main talking points on the podcast when we went to halftime, and boy, oh boy, could I have not been more wrong. This just took a complete left turn in terms of the game. But terrible defensive effort, and I did want to say this. They came in, as far as the injuries are concerned, they came in seemingly 100% in terms of who was inactive and who wasn't. Campbell was out there, Jimmy was out there to start, but it all quickly unwinds. Jimmy leaves, we saw that. Calais Campbell finished the game, but he's clearly still not 100%. You just watch him move around out there. He's not himself. Peters is banged up. Harris went down late in the game. Anthony Levine has to come in and play corner. It was really ugly. It was really, really ugly. And even if they retained good health in this game, I think they still would have got torched. I mean, it was the way the Browns were playing. It was the way the unit was playing as a whole. I mean, that last touchdown to Kareem Hunt, I don't know what the hell Marlon Humphrey was doing. That was very uncharacteristic of him. He just out of position. I think he expected a safety to come help and tackle, but he just took a bad angle that you don't see him take. So it was a terrible effort overall. The injuries certainly play a factor, and it sucks because, you want that defense at full force coming down the stretch, but I just don't know if it's going to happen. It's disappointing because they've had the past couple weeks, Steelers game in particular, they were completely decimated by COVID and injuries as well, and they played a good defensive game. They've done well with the pieces that they've had. Martindale's rallied the troops, so to speak, but this one was just god-awful, and I don't know what else to say besides just a complete breakdown.
I mean, I will say, too, that I think the difference between the Browns and the Steelers right now is the Browns they actually have an offense, and the Steelers don't have much of that right now. I mean, the Steelers can't run the ball. That's their biggest problem. And that really helped the Ravens limit what the Steelers were able to do offensively. I mean, I give this Browns team, they're uber talented all over the field, really, when you think about it. Some holes in their defense could be exploited, but this offense is very talented aside from the mistakes Baker Mayfield's made this year. And even, I mean, they've really played better without Odell Beckham Jr. And I don't think a lot of that has to do with Odell necessarily. I just think the entire team has gotten better as the season's progressed, and they've put a bunch of strings of wins together. But yeah, absolutely very disappointing performance for the defense. I was particularly frustrated in the second half. I mean, they had that 2 touchdown lead. Of course, the extra point gets blocked, but another frustrating moment with Yannick Ngakoue. It just seems like once again, he's close but no cigar. He tried to get to Mayfield on the 21-yard touchdown reception by Higgins, like right as the fourth quarter was beginning, and he just didn't get to him, and Mayfield was able to escape and throw that ball all the way into the end zone. And I mean, Tyus Bowser, I mean, I was going to make the joke earlier if we were going to have that full-on conversation about Tyus Bowser and what his market value is going to be again. I mean, he's got 3 interceptions on the season now. I know his sack numbers aren't crazy, but you get a guy that can rush the quarterback and get you 6-7 sacks a season, maybe not that high, but at the same time play a decent cover linebacker and get 3 to 4 interceptions every season. That'll get you paid. So, I'm more, and as we go through the weeks now, that'll be another interesting argument is, I mean, that might be a good thing is if, Tyus Bowser's value can increase. And I don't know if that helps the Ravens with Ngakoue or not. I don't know if the two are related or unrelated. I think it might be an unrelated issue, and Ngakoue is still going to be pricey. But I do think that, as the weeks go on, Bowser's making a little bit of a case for, getting a little bit of market value out there. But overall, as a defense, very disappointing. But I do think that with, games coming up against the Jaguars and the Bengals, who don't have a quarterback, and the Giants as well, I think there's some room for improvement because the Browns were definitely the best offense the Ravens had left on their radar. But there's still, injuries certainly play a role. The pass rush in the secondary is definitely wearing thin right now at the cornerback position. But it kind of reminded me in a little bit of the way, kind of not as, quick paced because there were kick returns and it was constant scoring literally, but it kind of had like a feel of a 2013 Vikings game without the snow at the end with just constant back and forth scoring. I mean, you look at the fourth quarter, 13 points by the Ravens in both the third and the fourth quarter, and 22 points by Cleveland in the fourth. So you're talking 22 plus 13. That's what 35 points right there scored alone. I mean, in the fourth quarter. So yeah, nuts, and just hoping for better results next week against the Jags, but definitely something that you would want to see improved. And credit to the offense too for being able to keep pace with what the defense was giving up.
Right, and this whole Lamar thing, he comes back out at the right time, makes that play, and this is something we've talked about and we've brushed off in the past because we thought the whole narrative was BS and lazy and just something that was reserved for those terrible shows like, the ones on ESPN and Fox Sports 1 and the guys that aren't giving their real opinion or just have a team of writers that write out all their takes, those guys. Saying that Lamar doesn't win big games. Well, look, I'm not going to waste any time. We all know it's BS. He won plenty of big games last year in the 2019 season. This year has been rough for him. They played good teams, and they really didn't have many wins to show for it. I would consider the season opener against the Browns a good win. I mean, I know it was week 1, so there's no record attached to that win. Like, you didn't beat a team that was 7-2 or 8-3 or in the case of the Browns 9-4. You didn't beat that team. You beat a team that was 0-0. But as the season has progressed, I think we can all agree that the Browns were still a good, a talented group in week 1, and they got beat up, 38-6. So, look, I mean, that was a good win. The Colts win was a good one on the road, but other than that, you've had disappointments. Both games against the Steelers were close but couldn't find it. Titans, close but couldn't do it. Got blown out. It essentially felt like a blowout against Kansas City, even though the final score was a little closer than it felt. this year has not been great, but you take, the end of his rookie season, all of last year, and then a little bit of this year, even though this year has been kind of the worst of the three so far in terms of big games. He's been good. He's been fine in big games. And then you have this one where he's dealing with an injury or whatever he's dealing with. I don't know. A race to the bathroom. But he comes back, first play back is a 4th and 5, and you get a touchdown out of it. And that's coming after he had a pretty solid game up until that point. Didn't have the passing stats, but they weren't really passing at all. I mean, he was just, why pass when Lamar can, escape the pocket, and Cleveland's giving him 20 free yards to run before someone even gets near him? Why pass? You just, if they're not going to stop him from running, keep running. So it was a very MVP-like game from Lamar, and if you want a big win, it doesn't get any bigger than this. Season on the line, on the road, Monday Night Football against a good Cleveland team. I'll just say, try to spin this one, Stephen A. Smith. Try to spin this one, Skip Bayless, Max Kellerman. I'm not listening to you anyway, so I don't know what you said this morning after the game, but go try to spin this one.
Yeah, I mean, and their spin is likely going to be that it still wasn't an impressive passing yardage total. He finished with 163 yards passing, 11 for 17 and a touchdown, 44-yarder to Hollywood Brown in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, some of that can be attributed to, he missed 2 or 3 drives. I mean, we know the Ravens' passing offense is among the worst, if not the worst in the NFL, but Lamar missed, a couple of drives. If he plays both those drives that he missed, who knows? He could have gone. I'm not saying he's going to hit 250, which seems to be like the minimum that anybody looks at in terms of, legit quarterback passing in the NFL, but maybe he gets over 200. And that's not even factoring in the 124 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns he had on the ground. 9 carries. It's an average of just under 14 yards. So he's an electric player with the ball in his hands. And I think it took the Ravens about 3 months to figure this out this season for whatever reason. But when they get Lamar going, good on the ground, good things seem to follow. Is he going to light up the box score with his passing totals? No, absolutely not. But you can win games with him. He may cramp up originally, and we see the stats too. His probability of getting injured is just as much as any quarterback in the pocket getting injured. We've talked about that multiple times. We've said it countless times throughout this season, but he can win you games. He did it. I would consider this a very big game. And the games that you listed off as well were big as well, not in a primetime slot by, what have you. But this was a playoff-like game. It was with the Ravens having their backs against the wall. They still have to win out essentially and need other things to happen to get a playoff spot, but they are narrowing the field right now, but not the position they wanted to be in, certainly at the beginning of the year. And as we're going along here, yes, their competition aside from this game is kind of going down, but as we go through the home stretch here, they're heating up, and I think that's going to keep going with some weaker opponents over the next few weeks.
So this feels like a season-defining win in a way. I don't know where the Ravens season ends, but this is certainly a season-defining win and potentially a season-changing win, depending on how far the Ravens end up going. Let's talk about what's next. The Jacksonville Jaguars will come to Baltimore this Sunday. They have lost 12 straight after winning their opener against the Colts. They've lost every game since then. They're 1-12. They're right there. They're battling with the Jets for that top pick. So everyone's beating up on the Jets and saying they're a lock to pick first and maybe get Trevor Lawrence. Well, not so fast. The Jaguars are right there. Don't threaten them with a good time. They might lose out. So they're not good. They're not a good team overall, but they do have talent in certain areas. We know Gardner Minshew is going to start on Sunday. He is the best option they have at quarterback, so take that for what it is. I'm not saying he's going to light the Ravens up, but he is their best choice at quarterback. And he's got some receivers that are pretty talented too. DJ Chark's pretty good. Their rookie, Laviska Shenault, he's having a really good rookie season. So keep an eye on those guys. But just as a whole, they are clearly not a good team. I will say this, though. They played a lot of close games. 12 of their losses, 5 of them have been by 5 points or less. So they find themselves in it. They played Cleveland really close a couple weeks ago. They find a way to play close, so we'll see. I don't think they keep this one close. I think the Ravens keep it rolling. Under normal circumstances, if this was an earlier in the year type of game, I think you could classify it as a trap game for the Ravens. You're coming off of one of the best win of the season. Not only that, but maybe one of the best in franchise history. You start reading your own press clippings. You're high. You're on this ultimate high, and then you're playing one of the worst teams in the league. They might catch you off guard a little bit, but with every game holding the same amount of weight in terms of the playoff race, I think there's no way the Ravens overlook the Jaguars. So final score, I say the Ravens win 31-14. I think the defense has got a great chance to get back on track here against a less talented quarterback like Minshew. Not saying we're going to see the pass rush break out and have a monster game or anything, but if they can get to him a little bit, generate at least one turnover like they've done pretty much all year, they've been able to generate at least one turnover, they'll be fine. So that's my score, 31-14. I don't think I'm going out on a limb there or anything, but
yeah. And another tidbit in this one, a familiar name on Jacksonville that Ravens fans might know is Tyler Eifert, old Cincinnati Bengals tight end. He is on the Jaguars now, and you'll recognize that name coming up when the Jags are on offense this weekend. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said. I think this is going to be a pretty I'm not going to classify it as a full blowout, but I think the margin is not going to be close with the Ravens coming out on top. Yours, what was it? 31-13 for you?
14.
Okay, 31-14. I'll give them 15. I say they go on a 2-point conversion and get it at some point. So give me 30-15. The Ravens score twice as many points as the Jaguars do. And I think we see more of an establishment of J.K. Dobbins being the guy in the backfield. I think maybe if Des Bryant's active for this one, maybe Marquise Brown has a little bit of a rebound game against a weaker opponent in this defense. I know they still have some probably a piece or two on defense, but they've sold a lot of that roster off there within the last year or so. The Ravens certainly know about that. Calais Campbell and Ngakoue getting to play their former team. So why don't I say that Ngakoue gets a sack? I'll go with that too. I know that might be a little bit of a bold statement, but I think he'll get at least one sack, maybe two, but I don't want to go too crazy here. I mean, I might be getting a little too out of control with saying 2 sacks, but I think one is very reasonable. But give me 30-15 Ravens over the Jags on Sunday.
All right, I like that. I like that prediction for Ngakoue. If there's a game he's going to do it, why not now, huh?
And if not him, I mean, Campbell. At least one of them.
Anyone, really.
One of them against their former team should get a sack. That'd be a nice story to tell.
I'll take anyone. Give me a Jihad Ward sack. I don't care.
He was making plays again last night. That's another guy we didn't mention.
Yeah,
he looked good. He
was out there.
Man, nice to see him out there again.
Yeah, second straight game he's been active after being a healthy scratch earlier. He had the sack against the Cowboys. Ravens didn't bring Baker down at all in this game, but he was in there. He was disruptive at times, so maybe he's back in part of their plans moving forward. All right, I think that's it for episode 132. I think we got to everything. Probably forgetting something big, but that's how it goes. Man, what a game, what an episode, what a year it's been for the Ravens, and we'll see if they can keep it going. The road is there for them. You have 3 games, clearly inferior opponents. I know the Giants are looking like they're on the upswing a little bit, but come on, I mean, they're the Giants, and they just had an embarrassing showing against Arizona, so I'm not ready to take them super serious yet. But they do get to face Cleveland on the horizon. That might be a good measuring stick game right before the Ravens face them. Nonetheless, the Ravens should win all 3 of these games. Like they have to. They're favored to win. They should win all 3, and they want to make the postseason. They got to win all 3. So we'll see what happens. But it feels good as a fan to know that they control their own destiny. So we'll be here next week. hopefully another win. Hopefully the Ravens keep rolling and find themselves at 9-5. Thanks for listening. As always, spread the word, share the love, tell people about the podcast. Next week, same time, same place. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for listening.